computer. Well, hi to everybody out there in Facebook land and any other social media land that exists that I don't know about or I do know about. There seem to be so many springing up now. Most of you know me, Anita Narayan, Breaking Free Unlimited, and I've just finished a very long and involved Strategic Philanthropy Global Summit, which was an experience and a half. So I'm just on recovery. I'm coming down from the summit, but not coming down as far as the person that I'm about to speak with is concerned, Davide di Giorgio. David and I met actually in Las Vegas at another summit, not at the top of a mountain, Las Vegas. And so I'm really intrigued to be speaking to David today because I've been watching his journey from a distance from the UK and peering through my binoculars and watching his path unfold, and it's been very, very intriguing. And I wanted to have this conversation with him so that you can be exposed to the gifts that he's bringing to the table with reference to how it may help you with your life journey, with your path, with you in business. So without further ado, David, welcome.
Well, thank you, Anita. And I love it. It's like when you said from a distance, I think from a Bette Midler distance you've been watching.
Yeah.
Great song back in the day.
Exactly. Yes, giving our age away, or you are.
Both of us, right?
This thing, I was just saying to David, we're both in blue tonight, and that was not planned. Don't you love it when it just sort of like you just coordinate?
Synergy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fantastic. So, David, I met you in Las Vegas, and even though that was only last year, I feel that I've traveled longer with you. This is kind of quite an intriguing feeling, really, because you can get to know somebody for years and feel you never get to know them. And then somebody else, you can strike a conversation up and feel that synergy, that energy. And I really want to kind of explore with you for people watching this, what you're doing, because I believe that you have a great gift to bring to the table of this earth that a lot of people probably need more than they want, in a sense, because you know what we hear when it comes to speaking about people being, it's enough to get up in front of a crowd of people and get through it without fainting. And before we come on to your stuff, you've got a background in theatre, in education. I think you've done yoga as well, and you're bringing that mix to not just helping people with signature talks, but signature talks with a difference. And I want to get into that, but can you just give me your perspective of why you think so many people are frightened of speaking in front of audiences?
I think because they think speaking is in front of audiences.
Yeah.
It's exactly that. It's simple. So the reality is this: whether you're in front of 50,000 people or 5 people or 1 person, only 1 person at a time is receiving your message or not.
Yeah.
And so the reality is you are not speaking in front of thousands. I mean, that's just a logistical thing. It's a mindset shift you need to make. It's like, we are speakers. Speakers speak. We've been speakers since we can speak all our lives. And so when we just shift the definition of what a speaker is and take out that dirty word public speaker, because I think that's part of the fear, is like, oh, public speaking. And how many people are traumatized from their grade school, public speech embarrassments and not making it and getting caught and getting, coached the wrong way, which is something that I see so often, right? Instead, look, we're always speaking and we're always enrolling people into something, to be our friends, to go to dinner. What time do you want to have the next call? We are constantly enrolling people. And we all know the most effective speakers and communicators enroll people into massive tribes. If we want to look at, and this is not a political statement, but the situation right now in the US, whether or not it's good, bad, or ugly is besides the point. The fact of the matter is that speaker has been able to create a tribe of people who support based on how he speaks. Now, some people are going to say, well, it's terrible. Really? The results show that it's not as terrible as we might want to say it is.
Yeah.
Because it's getting a result. It's creating conversion at some level, right? And good, bad, or ugly, like I said, throughout history, when we look at all of the greatest leaders, speakers, good or bad, the people who have been effective speakers have created change, sometimes not for the better, unfortunately.
Yeah, it cuts both ways, doesn't it? I just want to loop back, for people who may not know you so well, you've got such a rich and varied background. I know that. I've extracted that much from you. How did you come to decide that this was the gift that you were going to bring in and help people with?
So if we go way back, it's always been in me. I was the kid who would go to theater and plays and things like that, spectacle of any kind. And I'd be sitting there in the audience, kind of like a Simon Cowell, a young Simon Cowell. I hope to meet him one day and be like, I could do that better. And not from a ego standpoint, but I thought if only they did this little tweak or this little move, it would be so much more effective. So, as you accurately described, I was a theater producer, director, creator. I started as a composer and musical director, and that's where I really got the training ground. And I really started to understand language in musical theater in particular, because in musical theater, lyrics are abstract. And so not only are they performing, but they're also singing, and it's abstract. So I really understood text, and I had a great mentor who I remember, I could still see him. He's now passed, but he would sit in his chair in the theater and he would say, text, text, text. He would repeat it over and over. And I'd say, what are you talking about, Fred? And he's like, I don't understand what they're saying. Like, they're not believing it. And that really stayed with me. It wasn't until recently that I connected the dots with this. And I went on and I became a successful theater producer. I had my own production company in Canada. And I also stepped into education at the same time. I was a head of a music department in a high school for 10 years. And because I had a hole in my schedule, I opened a yoga studio. Now, when all that dissolved and I decided that I was no longer willing to live in the cold climate, and I ended up in San Diego, and my whole life changed, and I got married and things were great. I met my partner. I started in that period of time we love to call immigration. I couldn't work officially. And actually, we met in that time, and where I didn't have official status yet, so I couldn't actually, generate revenue. So I was going to a lot of summits, conferences, events. And I started seeing a lot of really smart, on purpose, on fire, successful entrepreneurs, coaches, authors, experts, business owners get on stage and be abysmal, terrible.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, purely selfish, if I'm being completely honest, purely selfish. I thought, if I'm going to be going to these things, if I have to go to these events and summits and conferences, I need to do something about this, because I can no longer be victimized to your terribleness on stage. And the bigger vision, not to joke about that, but the bigger vision was, I see something in people. I think that's why I became a high school teacher, because that's a mercenary position, music of all things.
Yeah.
I see miracle when I see people. I see potential, unlimited potential. And so to get that out of people, to coach people, to bring that out in a way that they can become a leader of an on-fire tribe, that is so exciting to me. And so working with speakers is easier than working in musical theater and working with performers, which I've done my entire life, because now it's language, it's linear, it makes sense. We're not trying to have rhyming couplets, we're not trying to repeat or whatever. So yeah, that's been the journey, and it's been such a blessing and a joy to work with other on-purpose entrepreneurs, business owners, coaches, authors, whatever they may be, who are up to something bigger than just making money in the world. That is my sweet spot. If I work with a lot of TED speakers too. I'm a TEDx speaking coach now, and people who have a message that they really want to share. When you light up, when I ask the question, what do you really want to say to the world? The people who light up, that's my ideal. I love working with people like that.
And I love what you just said, because I've heard you use the phrase "on purpose" a few times, and I wanted to underline that, because there are people that speak in business, for example. I mean, you mentioned TEDx, but whether it's at the networking event or any other variation where they speak, and quite frankly, it's a chore, it's something to get through, and it's met with great relief afterwards. You're not necessarily working with people who are just doing it out of necessity, but for whom, as you said, this is something bigger than you.
Yeah, you have this. I want to talk to the people who feel like they've had something to say for a long time.
Right.
And
Right.
they don't say it. They play small. We're inauthentic. We're unseen. We're unheard. Our voice blends in with thousands.
Mm.
We feel insignificant, or we feel like we have so much more significance in us, but we just don't, we haven't done it, or we
Mm.
haven't been unapologetic. We've always played small and like, oh, well, if I do it that way, maybe it'll be successful. We've tried every other way, and it's just,
Yeah.
you're tired. We're in prison of this
Yeah.
inauthentic playing smallness, and just tired of it. And that's my own personal prison. I was tired of it. I came out at 33 and got instantly disowned. I waited 33 years for the inevitable to happen. I knew what was going to happen, right? And so I'm just tired now at 41 of just waiting and not saying what I want to say, and not saying like, look, if you did it this way, you consider the possibility that you could have a way bigger impact. Like, we can change the world one by one. Look at the people who've changed the world for the worse one by one.
Yeah.
So why don't we just change the world for the better and say what we really want to say and create positive impact and be on purpose? I don't have time not to be on purpose anymore. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and I'm really hearing in what you said, David, that you've had your own personal journey with this. You said a moment ago you got to a point where you just got tired of, if you like, my paraphrase, playing small.
Yeah.
And playing small often involves becoming someone else in order not to be you. So it seems to me that part of what you do is, this is so much more than just speaking. This is about what I would describe as creating an experience within the heart and mind of the person or people that you're speaking to. That's very different to just speaking and dispensing information, isn't it?
Yeah, it's creating an experience and becoming a speaker, becoming the speaker that you've always been since you started talking, becoming an influencer, becoming the leader that you were meant to be. Look, the reality is this, something I've been saying a lot lately. Not on my watch will you exit this world without the same standing ovation with which you entered it into.
Yeah. I love that phrase. It's one I use in my own coaching practice. If you're going to do that, not on my watch, but on my watch, this is what I want to see happen. And I love that, because there's so much, when I say power in that, I don't mean that in a sense of, the power where you tread on somebody else's, patch, if you like, in order to feel better about yourself. Talking about that real releasing of who you are.
Right.
And I'm wondering, in everything you've said now, so now we're talking really about something that's more than just speaking in the traditional sense. It's about creating an experience with your message, for want of a better term. Mm-hmm. How much of the help that you give other people, or the process that you take them through, David, is about enabling them to let go of stuff?
Oh, a lot. Because we take on all these layers of garbage. And so, oftentimes I worked with a very young, amazing human being, Ted, on his TEDx talk. Already had been a speaker, spoken to thousands, already had a book that's endorsed by Jack Canfield, and he's 20. He's 20. So he didn't really need me. He comes to me with his talk, and I looked at it. I said, okay, well, let's start from scratch. And I almost say this all the time. What do you really want to say? And every single time, in this case, his name was Jake. He said, oh, if I could really say what I want to say, I would say this, and I'd say it this way. And at the end, because he lit up, it was, I joke about, it was arousing. Mm-hmm. He moved me. On Skype, he moved me. And I said, so how about you just say that? Because how did that feel? And he's like, oh, I felt on fire. Can I really say that? I said, well, I'm just saying, right now, as I'm telling you this, I have, goosebumps. I get the chills every time, because that he created an experience because it was from his deep passion. Now, is there things that we can do to craft it, to get it honed in, to make sure that the words are the right words that really land and resonate with other people? Sure, there's all sorts of things. But when you are being so authentic and unapologetically you become unmessable. Because see, all of our lives, we get messed. Like, oh, I want to say this, but I'm going to say this because I think it's going to go over better.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to sell this because I don't want to compete with this person. Or I'm afraid to rock the boat here, so I'm going to do this. So we become messable. So I want you to become unmessable and undeniable, unstoppable. And all of those things truly make you unforgettable. So what is it now? 4 months later, after Jake delivered his TED Talk and I retell his story, I still get goosebumps. So you see, now what's happened is I've become...
Oh, we seem to have lost you for a moment, David. Certainly my end, you've frozen. So for those watching, just bear with us because the connection hopefully will come back. And what David is talking about is really, really important here, because this is now getting past technicalities. This is about who are you, what is your gift you bring to the world, and what is the message within that that you want to inspire and help other people with. Or if it's something in business, you know, how do you deliver that in a way that's going to engage people? We seem to have lost David. I'm just going to wait to see if he comes back in and joins within this. But anyway, so just to fill that gap, you know, there are what I call the technicians out there, people who want to do things in a technically correct way. Nothing wrong with that as far as it goes. But often what that means for people is that their speaking, their message becomes something of a performance issue, rather than that they're having now a conversation with people to really impact them at a deeper level. And David, before he disappeared on us, was talking about, you know, being unforgettable, saying what you really want to say, and without apology, but with being authentic. And that's really, really important. And there's a difference that you can create by way of experience in the eyes, the hearts, the mind of your audience when you come from that place versus when you come from another place, which is, you know, I want to deliver this information, and if I can get through with it over to the other side and articulate it well enough in a very well educated way, that is enough. Well, that will go so far, but not far enough. So I'm just going to pause this recording for a moment. So little glitch there in technology, and but we're still here, so all's well with the world. And David, one of the things I was just discussing with the audience whilst you were regrouping there is, you know, there is a difference between being a technician, if you like. You know, I have something that I need to deliver by way of information, knowledge to this audience, versus really connecting with people from the heart, and as you underlined, but coming from a place of authenticity. So now you're engaging in conversation. And I don't know about you, and I love what you're saying, because, you know, when I went and did my TV presenters course last year, I had no presenting experience whatsoever, except I do these videos, you know, and all that kind of stuff, but no formal experience. And it was really interesting, because one of the bits of feedback I got was that the reason I fared so well on the course was because I was just being myself. Yeah. And it really struck me then, and when you were just talking then, how much sometimes in the pursuit of delivering something, you know, under the umbrella of excellence, we somehow take away from who we are naturally and authentically. Yeah. And this can happen not just in speaking. I saw this on the football pitch as well, where I used to play football. So I think that's very powerful what you're doing, because really this is now about people who, as you said, are on purpose. Mm-hmm. So this is something that involves them and probably is bigger than them, and that either they need to rediscover or discover afresh their own true voice in this. Who are they? What is their message? And how do they come from a place of authenticity? Right. So that, as you say, they can talk without apology, but can leave that unforgettable experience in people.
Yeah, and you really hit on something really, one of my pet peeves in the speaker coach world that I see that's out of integrity is that, you know, I'll have people, and it's not about, it doesn't matter who, it's irrelevant, the other trainers or whatever, right? But when someone says, oh, I am a fill-in-the-blank certified speaker, or a fill-in-the-blanks, or great, you've learned some tools.
Yeah.
And then what I see, unfortunately, in most of those cases, 90% or more, I see that blueprint and formula. I see the well-crafted beginning. I see their system. And so what happens is there's no room for you, the individual, to show up. And that's what makes me different. Look, I don't have a blueprint. I just don't. And I'm unapologetic about it. I don't have a system.
Yeah.
The blueprint for a great talk, and TED talks about this on the website, on the TEDx and the TED website. A great talk has a great introduction, a great middle, and a great end. Period. So all of these, like, okay, you have to do this, and you're going to tell a couple minutes of story, and then you're going to transition here, and then you're going to put the offer here, and you're going to, like, don't tell them the whole story. You're going to break it up, and I'm going to use NLP here, yes or yes. All of this stuff, yes, there is a technician level for sure. But then how do you make that your own? How do you install that into your own way of being so that there's space for you to show up in the experience where people are really feeling you, where people are having that connection with you, that they understand that you're not just delivering content? Because the reality is there is nothing that is going to come out of your mouth that I can't find for free on Google.
Yeah, and I think that that's another interesting point because, you know, for example, where I've been helping people with their books, for example, now this is another form of communication. It's the written word here. But you touched on something I think is really important, that often, particularly in business, a lot of people start sharing from a place of, you know, this is what makes me credible. You know, I've done this, that, tools, techniques, these are the clients I've helped. And I don't know about you, but I feel we're living in a time now where more so than ever, people really want to connect and relate to the person that is, if you like, helping them. And if they feel that, you know, it's just all credibility, but you know, you don't know what it feels like to da 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 da. But when someone says, like, you know, you've had in your journey, your sort of crossroads moment where, you know, you had to decide, am I going to say what I want to say without apology? And what you're now helping other people with is a natural extension of that. And what I also love is your background. This is another thing, is that I think we live in a society where often creativity is stifled.
Oh.
And where we've already talked about authenticity, that's stifled as well. Things are about formulas and, you know, being very systematic and not knocking that. There's a time and place for that. But it feels to me like your background has been quite instrumental in you helping people in a way that they can find their true selves.
Absolutely. I mean, the training ground, so the first training ground was music.
Yeah.
And in music, we take a blank page, and I was a composer. Yeah. You take a blank page and you create something. So there's alchemy. You take something ordinary and you turn it into something extraordinary. And every piece is different, and every composer composes something different.
Yeah.
And even though there's only, you know, 12 pitches in the standard system that we use in this part of the world anyway, there's room for authentic expression. And that to me matters. So sure, let's just imagine the blueprint for a great talk is beginning, middle, end, which is why I actually use a 3-act structure for most talks. So great. But within that 3-act structure, what a beautiful blueprint, because we could do anything.
Yeah.
So if you're a musician, well, let's sing. If you're a dancer, maybe there needs to be movement. If you're an artist, maybe there needs to be some sort of a set piece, or there's like a journey. You know, we've seen great TED Talks with the piano players and rappers and all sorts of things, right? So who says who, I always say, it needs to be this way, right? And that creates space for us to show up. Because remember, I mean, whatever you believe in, God, science, on both ends and everything in between, us being here is a miracle, period.
Yeah.
It's a miracle of God. It's a miracle of science. It's a miracle. This is incredible.
Yeah.
So I think to myself then, so now what can we do with this miracle? Like for me, it's all about leaning into that, the edge of like, what's possible? And I think anything is possible. So have that basic blueprint, you know, beginning, middle, end. And well, what do you want to say? And how do we want to, it doesn't matter what the avatar and all this. Oh my goodness. Like, yes, I understand you have to understand your clients and who you're speaking to and everything. But instead of asking, what should I talk about? Ask, what do I want them to do about it?
Yeah.
Who do I need to be for them to do something about it? Who do I need to be so that they can become the ambassador of my idea? Because my story, so what? Look, I cannot become the ambassador of your story. It won't move me into action. It's memorable maybe to some level. But when the idea, and that's what I really, especially in a TED Talk, I inspire people to use the idea as the through line and the thread, not your story, not your content, not your call to action. It's the idea that I can become the ambassador of, and then bring that out into the world, share it out with people. It will be connected to you.
Yeah.
So for example, Jake, that TED speaker, that young TED speaker, his idea worth spreading is passion replaces anxiety. And when you rediscover your passion, anxiety dissolves. 20-year-old.
Right.
Now, every time I'm going to think about anxiety, I'm going to think about Jake and his TED Talk, passion replaces anxiety idea. So I'm going to spread that idea out there. And I'm going to attach Jake to it. So you see how that works better than if he just gave me all the stats, which is in the beginning, there was here's my story. I went to Guatemala, I dropped out of school, and this is what happened and who I met on the way and the play-by-play and what science says about anxiety and what you should do. And I'm like, nobody cares about that. I can read that in a journal, in a medical journal somewhere, right? So what do you bring to the table that inspires me into action and creates lasting transformation in me?
So in Jake's example, that has the feel of, the core of his message, if you like. Is that when you use the word idea, is that what you're speaking to? What is the core of what you want to say to people?
Yeah. What do you really want to say?
Yeah.
What do you need them to remember? And what will cause transformation?
I love that. And I love the idea that you've got, this, it's like almost like a sandwich, isn't it? It's the beginning, the middle, the end. Because that's something else that I've observed. There's a lot of overwhelm out there. And it strikes me that anybody that can take their gift, like what you're helping people do with what they call speaking, but it's far more than that with what you're doing. And when you can help them in a way that sort of declutters all that noise and simplifies and streamlines it without taking away the potency of their message.
Well, it amplifies the potency, magnifies because when you leave space, so look, a lot of people can't identify with classical music because they think it's so complicated, because that's the lie we've been told.
Yeah.
It's so incredibly simple. I mean, a symphony, there's 4 movements in a symphony. There's 3 movements to this. There's, rondos that just repeating A, B, C, D, A, B, C. It's very, very simple, right?
I waited a long time for somebody to tell me that.
Right? We all did. I mean, even when I learned, I graduated from university with a music degree in composition. And the year after, I'll never forget the moment. I thought to myself, I actually don't really understand the notation system yet. Because it was abstract. They taught me every good boy deserves fudge, all cows eat grass. Nobody taught me that the treble clef was a fancy G, and that it identifies exactly where the G is on the staff, and that it's a grid system. Nobody taught me that the bass clef is the letter F. It's a scripted F, and it tells you where F is, right? It's like Da Vinci Code, but nobody ever told me what the code is. I just remember these little acronyms. It's noise, it's mess. It doesn't allow me to be the composer that I wanted to be, to understand music in a way that then 10 years later, I went and became a high school music teacher and transformed thousands of young people's lives to now understand how to read music, not just know how to read it and forget it when they're adults, because how many of us have done that, right? You learn how to read and then like, oh, I can't play anymore. It's a simple grid system, very simple. And I think that's one of my gifts, is to really bring things down to the absolute most simplest form so that you can show up. You can be the best musician, you can be the best speaker, you can be the best entrepreneur, coach, author, and that you can create transformation in the world, positive transformation.
Oh, I love that. I love that simple, streamlined way, but but working it in tandem with the creativity, the authenticity. I think that's great, David. And one of the things I know you've got, you know, several ways in which you help people who really want to experience what you've just described in their own practice. But what I'm intrigued about, having met you in Vegas last October. I said I've been watching you from a distance, but I can feel your own unfolding in this process. And I think it's not surprising for me to watch the people that have now become drawn to you who are seeking that help. And it's all started from you becoming unapologetic and stepping up into your uniqueness, into your greatness, into your message.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
creating this ripple effect. That's what I'm noticing from across the pond.
Exactly. And it's been like almost shocking. Like every morning I wake up, I'm like, oh, I did this
Yeah.
because I am blessed to be unapologetically me. And I'm not afraid to give people a reason to reject me.
Yeah.
So that in turn they can decide if they want to accept me.
Yeah.
Because if you're just playing nice with everybody, so what?
Yeah.
Who are you? Like, why would I hire you? Or why, if you don't stand for anything? I mean, and let's just look at the greatest, I grew up Catholic. So, Jesus, 2000 years later, still has a bestseller. Now, whether it's real or not, or whatever we want to believe, the fact of the matter, he gave people a big reason to reject him.
Yeah.
And whether we like it or not, 2000 years later, we're still talking about it. So look at the impact when you give people a reason to reject you, that you can create this ripple effect, deep, lasting legacy.
Yeah. And what I love about Jesus, he's probably one of the few that was a bestseller and made a deep impact.
Yes,
We both
right?
know, and I don't apologize for saying this, it's very possible to get to bestseller status. That doesn't mean you're going to get the speaking invitations that people talk about. And it certainly doesn't mean that you're going to have a great impact. And I think this is really important. Not knocking bestseller, by the way.
No.
For folks listening in on this, be really, really clear about why you're doing what you're doing, because that's going to shape your path.
Well, and I just thank you for saying that. So here's one of the things. Look, the reason you're not going to get speaking engagements, people listening in on here, you want to learn how to get more speaking engagements, this is how you do it. You stop asking for speaking engagements.
Yeah.
Because that vision turns me off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've hit another spot very close to my heart, because I know when I first started out on the author path, and there's so much learning that goes into this process. And I remember being really, I don't want to use the word obsessed, but something that's near that. What was so uppermost in my heart was, I want to impact people, because there's a reason I'm writing this book. And it's come from my heart and soul. I didn't have to write it. And that mattered more to me than how many books went off the shelf, because as we both know, over 60% of people who buy books don't engage with them.
Right.
That's just a really kind of like pants.
That's results, real. Yeah.
How do we
reality.
Get engaged? And so, I'm kind of really fortunate. Some people say opposite, in that, whilst I don't have 5,000 books that flew off the shelf, of the books that people did buy, I got so much engagement and so much feedback. And I can work with that to expand the impact. But when you're the other way around, where, you're very good at all the marketing stuff, but you're not bringing the value to the table, this is why we get so much rubbish circulated in this world. And so I'm really grateful for people like you that go, and we all have our journey on this. We all have our point where we decide to play big, or otherwise it's a choice. But I'm so glad and so thrilled to have watched you go, you know what, I'm going to really step up into me now. And it was palpable. It was visible. So thank you for being that person. And I know it's an ongoing process, David.
It is.
I know that out of that, you've kind of you've formulated some experiences, if you like, that people can engage with if they want to take this further. And just to remind you folks, because we had a blip halfway, David is talking about wanting to help people who are on purpose, not just want confidence at a speaking event, but they're on purpose. So they really want to move and impact people, and they want to either rediscover or discover afresh their authenticity, come from that place, and be able to craft what they want to say in a way that's really going to engage and touch people.
Yeah.
That's my paraphrase in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, what are the experiences you now create? I know you've got one coming up on Friday and then one that is not on land. And Jesus was very good at doing that. He often did it on a boat. You've gone one further. So take us through those two things.
Yeah, so this Friday I have a workshop locally here in San Diego where I live, California, dream come true city, which I manifested since I was 16 years old. Story for another time, version
I'll have you
2,
back. Don't worry.
right? The Unapologetic Speaker Workshop Experience. And it's a full day immersion for a small group of on-purpose entrepreneurs, coaches, authors, business owners to really dive in and craft, discover, develop, and begin to deliver their idea worth spreading. These are the people who really want to eventually get a TED Talk or do another TED Talk or speak using TED-worthy ideas. So an idea-driven talk.
Yeah.
And so it's just a small boutique experience for a handful of people. And we're doing it. It's an experience. It includes breakfast and lunch. And we live in this beautiful downtown condominium, and the lunch will be served on the skybox on the roof overlooking the park and all of downtown San Diego. And we have a photographer coming who will be taking photos so you'll get to use those photos of you working and speaking as you get practice and figuring out, okay, what is the idea? How can I move people into action? How can I craft this? How can, when I'm at a networking event, share my idea we're spreading in a way that moves people and says, you know what? Instead of you asking, I'm looking for speaking gigs, you just talk about your passion, and your passion gets you the result of people inviting you to speak. So that's super, super exciting. The Unapologetic Speaker workshop experience. And that, will be happening ongoing. And it's just unapologeticspeaker.com. Super easy. We love to keep it simple.
Oh, wow. Love that. Yeah.
And the other one, so excited. This literally is a dream come true. And let me just give you the 30-second version of how this came to be. I wanted to win 10 hours of creative services with a very well-known branding agency. And the competition was you had to come up with an innovative touch point in your business that drew from multiple industries and was unique to you, unique in your business. Well, I won.
Oh, well done.
And so what it was, so I won, and then I brought it to life. And the idea was this: what would it look like if I took personal development, speaker training, American Idol Hollywood Week for speakers on a cruise ship?
Wow.
And I put that all together, and the Speaker Experience at Sea was born. Yeah. And within a few weeks of the idea and winning this contest, in fact, I came up with the idea the day before the contest. 2 weeks after the contest, my husband and I went on a cruise by random, serendipity. And we started saying, is it possible we could pull this off? We ran the numbers, figured it out that it was possible. The next week after that, we launched it. And now we set sail in September on Holland America is our first one. And we're doing Vancouver to San Diego. We have a second one, which is still a secret. It's happening in the spring of this year. And basically it is a full immersion. You get to work with me one-on-one before the experience. Mm-hmm. And then on the cruise, we work to master your speaking, your engagement, your enrollment, and build authority all at the same time. The minute you step on the cruise ship, the whole time you are a speaker, and I will be treating you as if you are a speaker. Speaking opportunities will present themselves. You will arrive at your speaking opportunity and have prepared a 20-minute talk, and the organizer is going to say, I'm sorry, we only have 5. Could you cut that down a little bit? You'll be put in situations where maybe at port, you're going to have to go and enroll strangers in your speaking vision and see how people respond to you, instead of just asking, would you hire me to speak on your stage if you had a stage to speak, right? It's you are a speaker, full immersion. And the bigger vision, there's 2 levels of this. The bigger vision is our next one. We're going to be in port in location for 3 days, beautiful location. And for my retained clients who can come on all of the cruises at a deep, deep discount, because I want to build that tribe and build that leadership in them, they will get speaking engagements and arranged for them at destination. so they can also come back and say they're international speakers with the footage, with the photos, with that mastermind mentality, that mastermind group of people who are supporting them in truly becoming the most on purpose, on fire speaker. And that, because we love simple, speakerecsperienceatsea.com. Yeah.
Wow,
So,
fantastic. And I'll make sure I
exciting.
put those web URLs with the post on this for people who think you speak too fast at that point.
Right.
So just remind me, how long is that cruise experience? How many days is that?
So the first one is a 6-day cruise, 5-night, 6-day, 5-night cruise.
Okay. And that's the September one.
September. Yeah. September 25th from Vancouver to San Diego.
Oh, I'm so excited for you about that. So I'll be watching through binoculars.
Right.
But what I wanted to ask you, so for those who might be thinking of that, whether now or in the future, but want to be able to create a shift in themselves now as a result of just listening to you in this conversation and going, oh my goodness, something needs to change here. What was the change for you? Where would you encourage people to start to create that shift within themselves?
Surround yourself with other on purpose people. So it's time to start editing your list.
Yeah. That's
just like I help people edit their talks, you need to edit your life.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's exactly why, and I know we're probably going to talk about this anyway, it leads in perfectly. It's like, that's why I created on top of this all a community of other on-purpose speakers. And it's hilarious because for the longest time, I rejected this idea. I had a Facebook group and I got so irritated that the only reason people would ever show up in the Facebook group is to promote themselves.
Yeah.
And so you try everything, right? You put the must be where you have to approve all the posts and they still don't get it. And it's just, so there was nothing I wanted to do less than open a community. But I thought, you know what, I'm more clear now. And I tried this out, of course, the Unapologetic Speakers community. And I launched it just last week in all, authenticity and just to be vulnerable. And within 3 days, I got 30 people who were like, I want to be an unapologetic speaker. And so I know that I'm on the right path. And so now, I mean, what can you do in that group? You show up as a speaker. So first thing that you need to do is you do a 2.5-minute video introduction because speakers speak.
Yes.
And I'm going to give you a platform and a group of other people who are like-minded, right? Who want to develop themselves as speakers, as world changers, as leaders of tribes. Yeah. And in addition, what I'm doing is, so I'll do, ongoing Q&A and you can ask me questions in the group and I'll be doing little trainings ongoing. But I also came up with a great idea. It's like, what would it look like if I brought all of my amazing expert friends into the group? So I started asking and I got a bunch of yeses. So I've got publishers, stylists, photographers, videographers, people who are experts in ClickFunnels and online marketing, sales experts, someone who I can't wait, is so exciting to me to introduce this person to the community, who loves to call herself the Fairy Pod Mother. Because she is everything podcast. She knows how to get you on podcasts and what to do if you have your own. All of these amazing speakers and some really big names have actually agreed to say yes to be a part of the community, who will also be doing ongoing trainings, also there to answer your questions about how to build a speaking business that is viable. And that is, I mean, again, a dream come true to have this micro community of people who are really on purpose. And that, because we love simple, community.unapologeticspeaker.com.
Well, and again, what I'm hearing in all that, I'm with you about the Facebook groups and all that. I've had this love-hate relationship with social media for so long. But what I love is that in everything you've said is that when you start to get clear about yourself on your own path and start to build around that on purpose, and you've come back full circle to sort of opening a group, but it's on purpose, with purpose, look what's happening. And I think that's lovely. I think that's beautiful, because it's like watching a blossoming going on here that is based on when things are done genuinely and with value and the right people. I love what you said about editing your life, because I've always said the quickest way to bring about change in your life is to surround yourself by people who truly inspire you, rather than a textbook or this, that, and the other. So I love your phrase about editing your life and, you know, surrounding yourself with those things, those places, those people that can really kind of light that fire within you again or help you reignite. Very simple,
Yeah.
very profound, David. I like that.
Well, and I just wanted to put the button on that too, is like, again, just to be on brand with myself, is to edit unapologetically. Because
Unapologetically.
those things, those people that you're going to edit that are going to be painful, it's where that pain, where that resistance is, where your biggest leading edge is. And when you edit those people out or edit those things, because it's not only people, out of your life, the ones that you're holding on to for dear life that doesn't make sense, it doesn't serve you anymore, all of a sudden you open up, you create space for something new and wonderful to happen. And I am living proof of it.
Well, I think that's a lovely sort of note to kind of just, you know, bring a close to this conversation. There'll be many more. But folks listening out there, I mean, David, is there anything else that you want to say to people in parting before I wrap up for now?
I mean, you know what? You're ready now. People come to me all the time and they say, oh, when I'm at the level of speaking, and I said, but you're speaking right now. And you have a mission, a vision, a passion, a purpose. So how about now? You're ready now to be unstoppable, unforgettable, unapologetic. You are ready now.
I love that. And, you know, so over to you folks. You know, one thing I would like to ask you right now is, when would now be a good time to step into who you really are without apology, authentically, as David's been talking about, and to really bring your message to the world? One of the things I say to people is that if you don't step up into your greatness, in who you uniquely are, and bring your message to the world, I'm all the poorer for it. And if I don't do that, you're all the poorer for it. So what we're talking about here today in this conversation is really so much bigger than ourselves. And I'm really glad to be having this chat with David today, because there aren't too many people I commend that highly. And you know, I wish the opposite were true, but David would be one of those people. I've had conversation with him close up. I've watched him grow as a person. I've seen the lives he's touching. Oh, and we forgot to mention about San Diego and the homeless. Come on, just tell us a bit about that, because that was, sorry, we're going to end, but we're not.
No, that was a huge growing edge, actually. You know, 1 minute story is, you know, so it was part of a coaching program that I was in, and we were learning enrollment, I guess, you know, and we were at the end of the program. I'm like, I'm very busy. My business is taking off. I have a lot of clients, and, you know, and now we want you to go out and raise money for the homeless in San Diego. And I thought, I don't have time for this. This makes me angry. Most of my friends aren't even from here because I'm from Canada. Like, why? Right? And because I was so resistant to it, I said, I have to do it. And I did. And one of my friends reminded me at the end of day one, I reached out to them, and they were taking pity on me because they almost donated to my campaign, because the only donation to my campaign was $25 that I had given myself. So the point was, there was a collective of us, 25 of us, raising a certain amount of money. Each of us had to raise $1,500. Well, I'm like, okay, what do I have to do? Who do I have to become to make this happen? Because I wasn't going to fail. Well, I ended up raising well over $5,000 myself for this campaign. People from Canada, people from people from out of the country raising money. We're donating money for the homeless in San Diego to eat, because I was showing up unapologetically, because I was showing up in my power, in my glory, in the spotlight. And it was such a beautiful lesson to me to be like, people were just waiting for me to make a request. Yeah. And look at all the lives so we ended up raising just over $35,000. And I mean, I'm very proud, unapologetically proud, that 5,000 of that was through my network, through my tribe of people that said yes. I even had one girl, Sloan, you are an amazing human being, from Canada, doesn't know me, barely knows me, wanted to donate $1,000 Canadian, which is like 8 million American dollars. It's, you know, and I said to her, hey, 2 of my teammates on my team are not doing so well with the raising money, and I want you to help them. Could you not only donate to them, but could you split it up to 2 people? So 2 transactions and all that. She did it with joy. And I was able to give my teammates a boost, and the transformation that they got from that, and the boost in energy and confidence, they met their quotas too and their goals. What an amazing experience to go out and test for myself what it looks like to be a true enroller, to be truly on purpose, because I had to be truly on purpose in order to, how do I get you to don't, I'm not, it would be interesting for me to hear, what is your experience of that? How did you come to say, yeah, I'm going to donate to the homeless in San Diego?
Well, it was very interesting because I think, as you may have been aware, I was caught up with all the preparations for the Strategic Philanthropy Global Summit, and there was a lot of work involved in that goes back months, really, but it intensified as we grew nearer. So I was, funnily enough, in and out of social media. I had some people say, "Where are you?" And I said, "Oh, just because I'm quiet doesn't mean I'm not up to something, I'm a great believer in, the universal laws, call it what you will, as you said earlier, but I'm a great believer, and I love to just follow my heart. So I don't always have a rigid structure. I was talking, we were, for a lot of you sort of got to understand what the summit was about. We were actually interviewing 7-8 figure speakers who were doing good and making money. That's strategic philanthropy concept. But that doesn't mean it's just the domain for 7 and 8 figure speakers. So it's interesting when you're focused on that, how you start to notice things around you. And I don't know what's happening with Facebook lately, but so many things are coming and going on the news feed. But somehow one of yours popped up and I just looked at it. And, something spoke in my heart, is that, we can't every single time help everyone there is to be helped, because there are a lot of needs in the world. But for a lot of people, that can sometimes mean that they don't help anybody. They go all or nothing. And I thought, I'm trying to build my own foundation here, and but I need and want to keep in touch with what I call spontaneous giving.
Yeah.
And so I just put the question, who can I help today? Where am I meant to give this to? It may not be thousands and thousands, but for that person, and this is where I had to remind myself and retain humility, is that sometimes we think, oh, this is not a lot of money. And as you reminded me, and as I've reminded myself, when I used to sponsor a child in Africa and one in the Philippines. And I remember 20 years ago saying to myself, my God, £6 and £12 out of my salary, I was a nurse back then, it seems so small. Here, it would buy you a cup of coffee or two, and that's about it. But to them,
the impact,
that's a big deal. And I had to take myself aside and say, Anita, to them, that's rich. To them, that's like their life changes. So it's all relative. So when I read your thing and just got the gist of it, I thought, well, I want to just do my part to help you, because I could feel the energy of what you were trying to do, and I just jumped in there. It was that simple.
See? And there it was the being, right? He was like, okay, I got it. It's real. And we had rapport, and, and it just worked out. So thank you. Every dollar created 4 meals. So we think, it's rich. $1 creates 4 meals.
I know.
So that dollar counts.
Staggering. That's staggering. And, thank you, because you created that experience through what you were doing that allowed people like me to sort of participate. So I forgot to mention that, but I'm glad that came up in conversation, because I did want you to share that with people. I think that was awesome what you did. And I saw the big picture of the big check there.
The check.
In my pocket, but hey, I can always buy bigger pockets.
Right. Yes.
But David, listen, thank you so much for having this conversation today. And I hope you're going to come back and share some more stuff, because lots of inspirational stuff I want to have a chat with you about. For those of you listening in, listen, my question to you is, who are you? What is your gift? What are you bringing to the earth? And if you're somebody for whom you have a big vision inside of you that's bigger than you, then David is one of the people that can really help you not only find your voice, but really craft your message in a way that's going to impact lives. And that's what this is about, isn't it?
It sure is.
So
And thank you so much,
I'll,
Anita, for being
yeah.
such a blessing to this world. I'm so thankful for our connection, our rapport, our relationship and friendship. And I will be back.
That's the good news now for the weather forecast. So thanks everybody for joining, and I hope you've enjoyed this. And get in touch with David. I'll put the links in there, and you will be very, very blessed if you engage with him in that way.